This is One on One. We're speaking with Josh Weston, Honorary Chair of ADP. He's the Chair of Public Media NJ. That is the parent, if you will, of NJTV, our public television station in New Jersey, and also serves on the board of WNET. Josh, this is the second part of a two-part conversation we're having on education. I'm going to pick up on our conversation regarding education reform in New Jersey, merit pay for teachers, teacher tenure reform, if you will, and also we're going to talk about the other end of education, higher ed. Go back, if you will. You were talking when we last had our conversation about merit pay for teachers. Pick it up.
As is true in every other sector of performance, all performers, even if they are all conscientious, don't achieve the same outcomes. If you don't recognize superior outcomes achieved by superior teachers, two regrettable things happen. You don't even recruit the best teachers in the first place because they would be aware that their career possibilities monetarily, which isn't everything, but money matters, are limited. Number two, if you do recruit good teachers and over time they are recognized no differently from any other teacher, it's very demotivational, can even lead to voluntary terminations. I don't think if you want to harness people to want to give their best, stay loyal to what they're doing, be motivated to do more, I don't think if you are totally flat on recognition you achieve that. Just to add a touch of humor, many years ago I was on the Governor's Quality Education Commission in this state, and there too I was speaking about merit pay, and for whatever set of political reasons got nowhere. So I went to my local school system, Montclair.
Mine too.
And they cannot have merit pay. So the Weston family set up a recognition program, and every year,
yes, you did,
with the assistance of the PTA, not the administration, the PTA, parents and children can nominate outstanding teachers.
The Weston Awards.
Yes, we start with 200 nominations, and every year we pick 16. They get recognized by the Board of Education in a public event. They get a check. That's nice. They get a certificate. And those 16 teachers almost always cry because they never get recognized elsewhere.
That's a big thing in our town. We happen to live in the same town, and this is a big deal in our town. And I'm not saying that because you're a friend. It happens to be a fact. And I know those teachers, one of them happens to be one of our kids, happens to be a kid in the public schools, and one of those teachers got that award. But I got to ask you something. The NJA, the New Jersey Education Association, has been on Kappa Report, and they have said they feel that that competition among teachers sometimes can also produce teachers who do not share information, who are not as collegial as they would otherwise be with another teacher they're competing with, you say?
My experience has been in the business world where you have lots of executives with similar responsibilities. It may be one geography versus another geography, or one group of salespeople versus another. And I have found universally, at least in my background, I can't speak for the whole world, that if you develop a culture that recognizes the value of cooperation, that recognizes the value of recognition, I have never run into people creating walls around their intellectual property because they want to beat the other guy out.
Teaching's not different than business?
I have no reason to think, as far as sharing ideas, that teachers in different classrooms would say, I'm not going to tell that other teacher about a great technique I have because someday maybe I won't get the Weston Award if they get the Weston Award.
All right. What's wrong, if you will, with our higher ed system?
Well, there are many things that could be much, much better. That's another way of saying there's a lot wrong.
The biggest?
Education at the undergrad, let's just talk undergrads, is way too expensive in most colleges and universities. There are many reasons. I'll just give you a few iceberg tips. The last I knew, every year is either 52 weeks long or 53. As far as I know, most students go to 2 semesters per year. Typically, a semester is about 16 weeks. If I multiply 16 times 2, I end up with a gap. Now, things go on in the gap, but they do not efficiently use the overhead and the structure, or for that matter, even the professors who are being paid full year. Professors are very important people. They deliver the product. So let's talk a little bit about professors, particularly tenured ones. From my exposure to about a dozen universities, I can't speak for all of the others, but I'm pretty sure that there are very, very many tenured faculty members who teach 2 or 3 courses a semester. You can multiply a course by 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. There's a big gap between this hypothetical 40-hour week, could be 50 hours, but I don't think the professors are called upon to do as much as they owe their students. In addition, there are many universities and colleges who, on their payroll, have more non-teaching members on their staff, call it administration and everything else, than the body count of teachers who are in front of students.
The administration is fat?
Well, that's a provocative word.
Well, I'm using the word.
Excessive sounds nicer. I think any university where 50% of all the people they are paying, many of whom are doing worthwhile things, whatever they are, to be not in front of students, to me, says it's a big imbalance.
Would you run your corporation that way?
No way. Well, my corporation wasn't a school.
Well, when you were running ADP, would you look for such excess?
What I would do at ADP, and I'm not necessarily recommending it to anybody else, if I called myself the equivalent of a president of a university, but I ran a business.
A couple minutes left, go ahead.
I would visit every operating location within my whole business. Let's say the dean of this and the dean of that, and not only talk to deans, talk to students, I would talk to teachers. I would want to see the organizational chart, which would display how many buckets you have doing how much and how many layers of personnel are within a bucket, the most grotesque of which has nothing to do with education. Bob Gates, very respected Secretary of Defense, in his last month in office, pretty late, announced for the first time he was appalled to discover there were 32 layers of people between him and the firing line. Well, I'm not here to talk about the Secretary of Defense, but I'm reasonably sure that if someone looked regularly at organization charts at universities and elsewhere, you would find excesses, and therefore it adds up to the tuition for students, and then the worst of it is they borrow money to pay for it. They don't have a choice. The interest rates are sometimes excessive. And to take another item out of context.
Couple seconds, go ahead, Josh.
If a student defaults on his loan, he cannot go into bankruptcy. Bankruptcy does not take off the books a student loan. We take off everything else. So you can't start anew. It's terrible.
Josh, we covered a lot of ground. Next time we will pick up the conversation on tenure reform and a whole range of other subjects. Most importantly, every time you come in, you share your perspective and challenge us in our thinking, but more importantly, we have to act on it. Appreciate you coming in. Josh Weston, Honorary Chair of ADP, the Chair of Public Media NJ, and a board member at WNET. I want to thank you for taking the time to do this.
And I thank you. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation.
Thank you,
But
Josh.
give me another chance.
I always give you another chance. You're going
to cut that off.
No, I'm not going to cut that off. Stay right there. We'll be right back right after this. Thanks, Josh.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Sun National Bank, Qualcare Inc., New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, PSE&G, Fedway Associates Inc., the Russell Berry Foundation, and by Cone Resnick. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger and NJ.com, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.